I am Samura Jones, your emotional restoration coach, and you are tuned into Shattered Whole Podcast, where we feel, talk, and heal through the process by acknowledging the hurt, claiming our healing, and living as a new creation. I am so super excited about today's episode because I have an amazing special guest, and his name is Keith Sawyer. If you see him shake his head like that, that is how he tells you that he's being traumatized by me. But that's okay because it's a healing place. This is the place to express all the things that you are going through. You will hear us laugh often because this is my bro. But this is also a man who has transitioned in many, many different ways. And I'm excited about today's episode because we're talking about a healing king. And you hear the growl of the king, right? Like that's what it, you hear the lion, But welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying yes. I appreciate you saying yes, but I asked because I think that you have a phenomenal story, and I have watched you not only transition in so many different areas of your life, but also have such an amazing impact on so many other people. You don't kind of keep your healing to yourself. And I am one that talks to everybody. You never hear me say that I'm only targeting women or only targeting men because everyone needs healing. But I think there's something truly powerful about a man speaking to a man. About their healing spaces and places, and then also having both sides of the coin kind of talk about the different dynamics of what we've experienced and gone through. Right. So the first thing is the same reason why people are figuring out why they should listen to me, I want them to know why they should listen to you. It's too early to be traumatized. So what's Keith Sawyer's story?
I am just a Brooklyn boy that has been through some really interesting situations and processes to get to an amazing, amazing promise.
Yeah.
I've turned situations and adversity into triumph, and I apply it to every aspect that I can in my life.
Yeah. So part of the steps that we talk about is acknowledging the hurt. And a lot of times it starts with, like me, it started within my childhood, and I know with you it also has. So can you talk to us a little bit about where the hurt began?
Well, she
I went right in. She went right
in. My mother passed away when I was 3 years old. I had siblings, but I was raised as a single parent. As a single child, rather, from a single parent. My dad, I've went through some interesting situations with him. I don't give him the pass of the abuse, but I do recognize the troubles and the situations and the tools that he didn't really have to deal with his emotional state, and the decisions that he has made. I was an abused kid physically, not sexually. And I left home, or the house rather, which is a conversation I'm sure that you're going to touch on later on. But I left the house maybe about at 14 years old and had to figure it out.
Yeah. And I like that you even said that, and it just shows where you are now, that you recognize that he couldn't give you something that he didn't have.
Right.
But you also didn't make an excuse for like the poor treatment, right? Or you can acknowledge both. Like two things can be true at the same time, where you recognize that someone's behavior is not favorable and it's not conducive to a healthy lifestyle. But you also can recognize that the person doesn't have the tools to function healthily.
Right.
Right. So, with your understanding of that, like, how did you just not fall into a place where you just became just like him? Like, why did you decide that I was going to do something different, even from a young age?
I mean, there is something about integrity and like discipline that has been installed inside of me the wrong way, early. And I mean, outside of the seeds that was sown into me within my relationship with God, like really, really young before I knew what it was. But it got to blossom as I was an adult. But to go back as a child, I just made a decision. I made a I was put in mature situations.
Early.
Really, really early. And with being in mature situations early, I just made a decision. Like, it was a hard decision. But I think that sometimes you're faced with things and you need to figure out whether you're going to go left or go right.
Yeah.
So I made a decision to never become a hypocrite. And I don't want to become what I dislike. I don't want to become what I feel like I hate.
Right.
You know, so I just decided that I'm going to work for the opportunity to be able to be the difference.
Right. And I think that makes a lot of sense, because there are spaces, I want to say, that it's difficult to even make that decision, because you often imitate what you see because it's all you see. Right. But not wanting to become the hypocrite, and also you recognize, like, not only do I not want this, I don't like this, it didn't give me what I needed it to give. So how would me repeating the behavior do something different? Right. And I think in that, people fall into that, and then they start to hate the person that they became, and it becomes like this perpetual like cycle, and you kind of get stuck.
Absolutely.
So it's like, like, I'm pretty sure that there was opportunities for you to duplicate what you saw. So how did you fight the urge to not do the easier thing, even if it was the wrong thing?
Interesting. Like, so to take it a step back, like, God has given me an amazing gift to be able to like read between the lines a little bit different. Like, I have a different kind of like mindset and anointing on me clearly now that I know it in my maturity. I didn't understand it like young, but I listen. I feel like if I allocate the time to hear you, then I should pay attention to like what you're saying. So, and because I had to hear a lot of things as a child, I make sure that I heard it and used it and broke it down to be able to apply it. But there was so many things that didn't make any sense. So I would hear, I would hear conversations about equality, and then I would hear like, don't cry like a girl. And it's like, this doesn't make sense to me. Right. Now, if I was lackluster in my mindset, then maybe it would just fly over my head. But I always challenge things in my head respectfully, and then respectfully challenge the person, like really, really young. Now, with my father, I wasn't able to. So I had a lot of information and questions archived, and I would try to find the answers in life. Yeah. I would just make sure that I try to find the answers in life. So to hear certain things, I recognized between the lines that he was struggling with some things. I didn't have too much information about history, which is also very, very important, to find out like what happened like the lineage before you,
Yeah.
or whatever the case may be. And I realized that he was dealing with some things. He had his own struggles, and at the time I had my own. So I actually learned in the midst of watching his struggles, even though that I was the punching bag.
Yeah.
If I didn't want to be a hypocrite, then I got to do the work now that he also didn't do. So I needed to trailblaze, which is hard.
Hard. It doesn't sound like in having to make those decisions that you also had the support to make the decision. You made the decision because you mentally decided. So where did you find support? Or was there any?
There was support, but I couldn't utilize it. And that's why I say now as an adult, like a village is a village, and I really like lean and become transparent and vulnerable now as an adult. I didn't know how to do that young because I had places that seemed safe, but I could never really like entertain it or exercise in those spaces. So I really had an amazing family who I still have a great relationship with now, but I couldn't be as honest as a kid because I'm still trying to like protect my dad, protect my situation. I'm hiding truths and secrets and such. I'm also trying to hide my inefficiencies.
Right.
You know, as a young man, and you know, like we didn't have the space then, and sometimes don't have the space now to be able to say, like, there is a wrong being done to me.
Yeah.
I don't like it, and I want to do something better about it, kind of thing. So we just left to deal with our own mess. So I really had a good support system around me, but I didn't know how to utilize it.
Right. And just to speak to that, you know, we're using the language young. But how old were you?
I mean, I left at 14. So we talking like from the age of my mother passed away when I was 3. I can start remembering more specific situations, maybe about like 7, like in detail. So span of 7 to 14, like, you know, the abuse, I believe the abuse started really, really early at 3. He had his own frustrations. I'm really open to talk about it from what I've learned in my adulthood, but I couldn't understand it as a child.
Absolutely. There's some people who are adults who can't understand it, and it's not unreasonable not to understand why the person who gave you life, or the adult who's supposed to be the provider, the protector, the instructor, the one that girds you up, right? And then especially being, you know, a man, you know, a young boy looks to the father, a young girl looks to a mother for the example of the person that I'm supposed to kind of develop into. And when that person doesn't know how to be what is safe, what is I'm losing my word because I just like remember this space. You said something earlier where you recognized that there was an inequality, right? You were like, I'm hearing that, you know, don't cry like a girl, but at the same time, you know, we're supposed to be equal. So I don't have a space to cry because I'm a boy. I don't have the male showing me who I want to be. And even when I try to navigate that space of being who he's telling me to be, it's not enough because there's something happening that they're not dealing with. So you're 14 years old, you leave, and just to know you're emancipated. Like, so you don't just leave.
Yeah, that was rough.
I
didn't see it that way when I was young, but yes,
Right. And so, and you're like, I couldn't trust the people that were around me because, and I'm like, and it's important to talk about the emancipation because you have to navigate those spaces because you can't tell everybody because you don't have the rights because you're under 18 to move and be in certain circles. So from 14 to 18, what's going on with Keith?
That was an interesting time. I mean, I remember turning 18 and feeling a weight taken off of me because I no longer, like, even to this day, I operate behind the scenes. I do more behind than I do in front. So I appreciate you pushing me to situations like this and stuff like that.
You gonna get this excitement.
Yeah, this is something different for me and new, but I always believe in like being better today than you were yesterday. So, and I've applied that since I was young. A lot easier said than done, but I strive for it. But between those years, it was rough because I had to position myself to be the young man in the age that I was. But I also needed that. I had the responsibilities put on me as an adult because I needed to survive. And not only did I want to survive, I wanted to live.
Yeah.
And it's such a difference. Like, I realized that, like, you know, just worried about your day to day, worried about like how you're going to get it to tomorrow is only surviving. But I always dreamed big. I tell a funny, weird story, and I'm sure we'll get into it about like version 6 of this conversation. But like, Popular Magazine, I don't want to date myself, but like Popular Magazine,
Go ahead.
whatever, they didn't have to know. Popular Magazine was a big deal to me. It's still a big deal to me because it's this really, really thick magazine that had everything in it, from everything. So, and I used to go through page by page of a book, maybe about 400 pages, and just circle things about like what I wanted and where I wanted to be in the future. And I'm 14 years old. So pots and pans and rings and, you know, lingerie or whatever, because it had everything inside of it, from clothes to everything. I would go through and I would like circle something and date it, like throughout the whole magazine. And every month it was like another one. So it was like a new episode. Like, it was like a Netflix series for me. And I would go through it, but what it taught me is to not pay attention to where I was today. Because if I went through that magazine and I'm 14 years old, the only thing I'm going to pay attention to is my size of the clothes that I can wear and what I want to do now. So I'll circle a basketball, I'll circle a baseball, I'll circle, I don't know, a Nike sweatsuit or whatever. I would be limited. But that will only be maybe 5 pages out of a 500-page book.
Yeah.
So I decided to make sure that I took my time to go through every page of that magazine and at least circle something. So from a ring design to the complexion of the women that I liked that was modeling clothes to attributes and postures and clothes and to pots and pans. I literally like circled something and made sure that I circled something out of the page.
Yeah. And I think that the concept of that is dope, because it's not that you don't recognize or you're delusional about where you are, right? But having that hope that won't always be, and if the possibility was not always the case, then what does the next look like? And that ties into that claiming, you know, like your healing component, right? Because claiming your healing can be something that you're proactively like walking in currently, or it's something that you're speaking forward and that you're deciding to walk into. So as you're circling your pages, and I like that you said that you dated them. You know what I mean? At 18, I'm going to have this. At 21, I'm going to do this. And 19, you know what I mean? I was like, you're calling your existence, you know what I mean? You're calling these things into your existence. So they need to come to you. And I need to correct that language a little bit because, you know, some people will take that and be like, oh, all I got to do, you know. And I was like, but there's something about that name it and claim it aspect of it biblically. I was like, because there's a faith that goes into it that says that I know that I can't see it.
You can't see it.
You know what I mean? I can't see it. There's no evidence of what I'm experiencing. This is anything in this magazine is possible, right? Because I know the pots in that magazine, they started at $129 for the saucepan. Okay. All right. No, and let's say Did you have look $129? Did you have $29?
I didn't have $9. The 29 was lotto. Like I didn't have $9 on me. You know,
Right.
I probably had you know what? I can exactly tell you what I had. I had $1.50 because I used to go to a bagel place and get a bagel with cream cheese, cinnamon raisin. It cost $1.50, and I couldn't get a quarter water to go with it. You know, and so like I knew exactly what I had. I had limited aspects, but I had like my mindset, my dreams was big, and I always believe in like, you know, reasonably dreaming big, but not leaving it there like going to go try to obtain it. So everything inside of that magazine throughout the course of my life, one way or another, I went to go obtain. And to be honest with you, I mean, God's favor, like I can't say that I haven't obtained even from the copper pot before I knew what that meant. I haven't had or have at some, because I'm sure that I circled some really, really wrong things inside of that magazine that I got.
You should have put it back.
I should have wrote it in pencil. I should have circled in pencil. I did it in ink.
Right.
And that's
You were 14.
I was 14.
Little grace and mercy for a 14-year-old kid.
Yeah, I should have. Yeah. Okay.
I help you. I got you. But like that's phenomenal, right? So let me ask you, during this time, during this space, I've heard you mentioned it a couple of times, but like, where did God come in?
So I make a comment about like being a gardener for a reason a lot now in my maturity, because the seeds has been planted really, really young. I was in elementary school in 6th grade, and after I didn't do well with freshman Fridays in a couple of these schools. You know, I'm built a little different.
Right. Right.
So
wait. There's some people out there, because we got different generations who don't know what Freshman Fridays is.
I mean,
we go from Brooklyn. Like Freshman Fridays was a problem, or could be a problem.
Right.
Right. So you want to say what it is?
I'm gonna be. I'm gonna try to be as censored as I can, but I mean, Freshman Friday was a negative holiday.
There you go. Come on.
Right.
Come on, vocab.
Within junior high schools and high schools, for fresh meat, for freshmen that came into a school, predominantly a public school, when they thought that it was going to be hazing and
you were getting your butt whooped. They was jumping you.
They
was
were
a fight.
Yeah,
it was a brawl.
I wasn't trying to go there, but
it was the. We gonna tell the truth right here.
Right. Well, if we're gonna tell the truth about that, then you're gonna highlight a lot more about my personality, because the same way that I deal with other situations and pain is the same way that I dealt with that. So I'm sure it'll be a great segue, because what's the alternative? I came into the school optimistic, excited, charged about what's next. You brought a situation to me. All 11 of you that planned it, and I tried to prepare for it. And let's just say it ain't necessarily go the way that they thought that it was going to go.
Correct. And okay.
3 times.
Yeah, 3 times.
3
right?
times.
3 times.
3 times. 3 different schools was like, we love them, we want them, but we don't know how this is going to move.
Right.
Like how it's going to go. So I ended up going to a independent Christian school, Morning Star Academy, and I was new. It was independent study. It taught me a lot. Love to get into all of that, but we had devotion every morning, and I took it for granted. You know, it's just like, what's this? At 8 in the morning every day till 9. Like, this is crazy. Like, I go to church on Sunday. Like, but we had devotion every day from 8 to 9 o'clock, and then we started our academic studies. And so I know so much scripture and stuff like that or whatever, but it became more memory. I was too young to apply it. But I also realized like how important that was for me now, because there was so much seeds deposited in me really, really early. And now through my storms, which brings wind, water, you know, like rain, and then peaks of sunshine, I get to blossom into being something else.
Right, because there is all of this word, if you will, deposited in early. But talking to Keith Sawyer and having the conversation about where he started to really like connect with the relationship with God. So, like, when did you have all these seeds planted because you're going to a school that requires devotion for the first hour every day, and you don't really know what to do with that? You know what I mean? It's more like this is the assignment that I have to do. I have to memorize it because it's a requirement. But when did the requirement birth into or transform into the relationship?
I don't necessarily know the age. I was really, really young, but I was on my own, like really, really young, like early on. And adversity started to hit because life hit, right? Like, so you're not a kid that that your parents is taking the hits for you, and you just like dealt with, you know, the back end of it. It was hitting me directly.
You are the parent.
I am the parent.
You're the parent. You're the kid.
Yeah.
You're the counselor. All the things.
I'm the counselor, and I have to navigate this world in a different kind of way. Like, if you really think about it, at 15 years old, like trying to go to work or make $1 to pay a bill or whatever the case may be, or be able to buy a hero that I'm gonna make last for 2-3 days, kind of thing. And a tropical fantasy. Stop dating yourself.
You stop dating myself?
Yourself.
Oh, because I know it.
I knew the was coming.
Yeah. Listen, I never really liked tropical fantasies myself, but go ahead.
But you know what it is.
I know what it is.
Adversity hit, and I needed to either become the adversity, or conquer it, kind of thing. So I had to not ignore my situation and my circumstance. I needed to come up with a really, really good strategy of how am I going to be able to like manage it and maintain it, and then also create a plan to get past it and a path to execute.
Yeah.
You know, if you think about it, like being 15 years old or 14 years old or even 16 years old, navigating like between 9 a.m. and 3 p.m., less traffic, scary for a kid. Like, you would think that, you know, like after hours, 10, 11, 12 o'clock in the morning is scary, which it's a different kind of spooky. But think about it, like, if I'd have got stopped by auxiliary cops and they asked me for ID that I didn't have, and they would have detained me and said, call your parent. Not who am I calling? The guy that I ran from, the guy that I left, the guy that I don't want to see, the guy that can come and pick me up and inflict pain on me and put me back exactly where I chose to not
be anymore. Yeah.
Do I call my sister's parent and hope that they take the responsibility of coming down and like advocating for me and taking me? Like, it was a really, really scary place that I didn't get a chance to be able to be honest and transparent about.
Right.
But it's still something that I had to deal with.
Right. And I think I'm glad that you talked about the complexity of being in that space, because even when you're talking about, you know, how do I walk and navigate through, there's a cluster of decisions that then have repercussions that are like a domino effect.
Right.
And it becomes not just like scary, but paralyzing in some ways, because something as simple as who's going to pick me up
Right.
spiraled into 10 different avenues
Absolutely.
that you just mentioned, and none that were good.
Right.
So now what do, and how do you find hope?
Yeah, that's rough. That's really, really rough. I can tell you where it applies to my today. Um, I, I think that I learned, actually, let me go back. I think that I learned really, really young to have faith where I couldn't see, like, which is the definition of faith, right? So, and to trust where I can't trace. And I've learned that really, really early because I had no idea. I didn't see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Right.
I just know that I needed to keep my feet moving, right? Because I felt like to stand still and to get into a fetal position in the aspects of my life at that time, then I would become exactly what I ran from. So what makes me better? Like, what makes me different? In that popular magazine that we talked about, like, I also circled, you know, baby clothes and bibs and, you know, and I always wanted to be like a dad and, you know, and be an amazing parent. To be, not saying that my dad there wasn't great attributes to it and everybody has to deal with their own demons. Not that I created an excuse for it, but I always wanted to be better. I feel like every day we should strive to be better than our yesterday. And my days was bad.
Yeah.
So I just decided to, like, I'm gonna have a better bad.
Yeah.
And a better bad until my bad turns to good, and then my good turns to great. And it's an everyday process, which I'm still dealing with today.
Yeah. I appreciate the honesty of that statement, because you hear a lot of people who are experiencing these levels of pain and frustration and different things that they're dealing with because the next day it's still bad.
Still bad.
Like the next day is still bad. The next year was still bad. You know what I
Seriously.
mean? Like that.
Yeah.
You talking about 14, 18, just only reason why there was relief at 18 is because you ain't have to hide.
Right.
Because now you're legal. Now you can go get ID. You can go get like
Right.
these things, and now you don't have to navigate that particular
Right.
space. But there was a repetitive of bad. Not that there was no good in there at all, but the good that you were seeking, craving, and desiring wasn't measuring up to the same existence that you were having. But you recognize that what can I do? What mindset can I have?
Right.
And that is that I'm going to choose that the next day is going to be a less bad day.
It's gonna be a less bad day,
And
which is
yeah.
rough.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think a lot of people give themselves enough credit, like when they go into a situation, like what it means to get to the next day, because you could choose to quit, and everybody's quit is different. Like I have, like, my tenacity, my drive has always been like big. So I made sure that even like the lessons that I learned to my dad, like he created a lot of hardship in some aspects, but he installed an engine inside of me. Little did he know that was like, all right, like, so everybody's like trying to be a motorized scooter or maybe even a bike. Or maybe even a car. Like, I had the engine of a locomotive. Like, it was just different because I just realized that to be the difference, like, takes a lot of work, and it makes the difference also future forward. So again, it's like, I never wanted to be a hypocrite. To circle things beyond my today inside of that magazine. To do anything other than keep my feet moving, progress, and try to be better, I felt like would have been a hypocrite because I'm beyond the stage of bibs, bottles, right? So I'm not circling that for me. I'm circling that for my future.
Yeah.
But what sense does it make if I'm not going to strive to get there?
Right.
Right? Pots and pans. I'm a 14-year-old kid, 15-year-old kid.
Right.
I don't got no pots and pans. I think I saw a wok, grandma's old beat up pan that everything got cooked in
Cast
and stuff
iron.
like
Come on
that.
here.
Cast iron and all that good stuff. I couldn't lift it at the time with one hand. It was like really, really bad. But I made a decision to always think like future forward, which also applies into all of my endeavors and investments and such that I do today. Like, I forecast really, really well, but it came from a bad place. But I don't think that you should let any crisis go in vain.
Agreed. Um, I'm like, there is, and it's weird to say because you don't want to deal with the traumatic experience of the pain, let alone kind of think about what it produced in you, right?
Right.
But recognizing that you don't want to waste a crisis is really recognizing that no matter the atmosphere or the ground that you're in, that there's something that you can utilize from it, even if it's just the mindset of I don't want to be that.
Right.
That's what I took from that.
Right.
And it changed my life in a different way because I may not know everything about what I want to or should be doing,
Right.
but I know enough about what I don't want to do not to do that.
Right.
So if I can just not do those things, then I'll just learn how to do these things that's the opposite of that,
Right.
and then cultivate this new way of my existence. You know what I mean? Taking from it what I can.